Have you ever wondered why you reach for that chocolate bar when you're stressed? Or why you hit the snooze button every morning even when you know it's not good for you? That, my friends, is the fascinating world of habitual triggers. These are deeply ingrained patterns of behavior that are so automatic, we often don't even realize we're doing them. But where do these triggers come from, and how are they formed? You see, our brains are incredibly efficient machines. They're always looking for ways to save energy, and one of the ways they do this is by creating shortcuts. These shortcuts are what we call habits. They're like a script that our brain follows without us having to think about it. Now, every habit, whether it's reaching for a chocolate bar or hitting the snooze button, has three parts. First, there's the cue. This is the trigger that starts the habit. It could be a time of day, a certain place, an emotion, a sequence of thoughts, or even a specific person. Next, there's the routine. This is the actual behavior you perform, whether it's eating the chocolate bar or hitting the snooze button. Finally, there's the reward. This is what reinforces the habit, making it more likely that you'll do the same thing again in the future when faced with the same cue. The reward could be a feeling of pleasure, relief from discomfort, or even just the satisfaction of completing a routine. Put these three parts together, and you've got a habit loop, a cycle that can keep repeating itself over and over again, often without us even realizing it. These habitual triggers can significantly impact our lives, often in ways we don't realize. They can affect our health, our relationships, our productivity, and even our happiness. But the good news is, once we understand how they work, we have the power to change them. And that's what we're going to explore in this video. So buckle up, because we're about to take a deep dive into the world of habitual triggers and how you can rewire them for a better, happier, and healthier life. These habitual triggers can significantly impact our lives, often in ways we don't realize. Knowing what triggers your habits is the first step to changing them. A trigger is like a tripwire for your brain, setting off a cascade of thoughts, feelings, and actions. Recognizing them is essential, and to do that, we'll explore the 5 most common types of triggers: location, time, emotional state, other people, and the action immediately preceding the habit. First, let's talk about location. Do you ever find yourself feeling hungry the moment you walk into the kitchen, even if you just ate? That's because your brain associates the kitchen with eating. It's a location trigger. Next up, we have time triggers. These are habits we do at specific times of the day, like grabbing a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, or mindlessly scrolling through social media before bed. Thirdly, emotional state triggers. These are habits we engage in when we're in a particular emotional state. For example, reaching for a tub of ice cream after a stressful day, or biting your nails when you're anxious. Our fourth type of trigger involves other people. Ever noticed how you tend to gossip when you're around a particular friend or colleague? That's because their presence is a trigger for that habit. Lastly, we have the immediately preceding action. This is a habit that follows another action. For instance, brushing your teeth right after you wake up, or checking your phone as soon as you sit down for lunch. Each of these triggers is unique to us. They're woven into the fabric of our daily lives, often so subtly that we don't even notice them. But by paying attention, by being mindful of our actions and the circumstances surrounding them, we can start to identify these triggers. Remember, it's not about assigning blame or feeling guilty. It's about understanding. It's about recognizing the patterns that govern our behavior. By identifying these triggers, you can start to understand why you act the way you do. Now that you know what triggers your habits, how can you change them? Let's dive into 5 strategies that can help you reprogram those habitual triggers. The first strategy is substitution. This simply means replacing a negative habit with a positive one. For instance, if you're used to reaching for a sugary snack when you're stressed, try substituting it with a healthier option, like a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts. It's all about making a conscious decision to choose a healthier alternative. The second strategy is cutting out the trigger altogether. If you find that certain situations or environments lead you to indulge in negative habits, try to avoid them. Let's say social media scrolling is your downfall, and it's usually triggered by boredom. The solution? Keep yourself engaged with other activities, perhaps reading a book or going for a walk. Thirdly, we have the strategy of gradual change. This is especially useful for deeply ingrained habits. Instead of aiming to quit a habit cold turkey, try to gradually reduce your exposure to the trigger. If you're trying to reduce your caffeine intake, for instance, start by reducing the number of cups you drink each day. Our fourth strategy is positive reinforcement. Reward yourself each time you successfully avoid a trigger, or substitute a negative habit with a positive one. These rewards don't have to be extravagant. A simple pat on the back or a favorite treat can work wonders. Lastly, we have visualization. This involves picturing yourself successfully avoiding a trigger or engaging in a positive habit. Visualization can be a powerful tool in habit change as it helps to reinforce the desired behavior in your mind. Remember, reprogramming habitual triggers isn't about perfection, but progress. Each small step you take towards avoiding a trigger or substituting a negative habit with a positive one is a victory. With these strategies, you can start to reshape your habits to better serve you. So let's take control of our triggers and ultimately, our lives. Changing habits is not an overnight process. It's like trying to steer a massive ship in a new direction. It takes time, effort, and most importantly, consistency and patience. Let's start with consistency. Consistency is the backbone of habit formation. It's the repetitive action that helps to rewire our brains to create new neural pathways that eventually become our new habits. Think of it as forging a new path through a dense forest. The more you tread the same path, the more worn and clear it becomes, making it easier to follow each time. On the flip side, the less you tread the old path, the more overgrown and difficult to navigate it becomes, until eventually, it's no longer a viable route. This is exactly what happens in our brains when we consistently practice new habits and let old ones fade away. But here's the kicker. Consistency alone isn't enough. It typically takes at least 21 days to form a new habit. That's 3 weeks of repeating the same action day in, day out. And that's where patience comes in. It's easy to become disheartened when you don't see immediate results. But remember, real change takes time. The key is to be patient with yourself. If you slip up, don't view it as a failure. Instead, see it as a learning experience. What led to the slip-up? How can you avoid it in the future? Use these slip-ups as opportunities to grow and adapt your strategy. Be kind to yourself during this process. Changing habits is tough work, and it's okay to have setbacks. What's important is that you get back on track and continue forging that new path. So, hold on to your consistency. Arm yourself with patience and keep reminding yourself of why you started this journey in the first place. Progress might be slow, but as long as you're moving forward, you're on the right track. Remember, the journey to changing your habits is a marathon, not a sprint. Let's quickly recap what we've learned today. We started by diving into the concept of habitual triggers. These are the cues, the signals in our day-to-day lives that kickstart our habits, whether they're beneficial or detrimental. From the aroma of coffee that prompts us to pour a cup each morning, to the sight of our comfy couch that tempts us to skip the gym after work, these triggers are deeply embedded in our routines. Next, we discussed methods to identify these habitual triggers. We learned that self-awareness is key. It's about paying attention to our routines, our environments, and our feelings. It's about questioning why we do what we do, and understanding the underlying motives. We also learned that journaling can be a powerful tool in this process, allowing us to track our habits, identify patterns, and pinpoint our triggers. Then, we explored various strategies to reprogram these triggers. We discussed the power of substitution, replacing a harmful trigger with a healthier one. We talked about the role of positive reinforcement, rewarding ourselves when we resist a negative trigger or respond to a positive one. And we touched on the importance of visualization, picturing ourselves successfully navigating our triggers, thereby reinforcing our ability to do so in real life. Finally, we emphasized the importance of consistency and patience. Reprogramming habitual triggers isn't an overnight job. It's a journey full of ups and downs. But with persistence, with consistency, we can reshape our habits and in turn, reshape our lives. So, there you have it, an overview of habitual triggers, what they are, how to identify them, strategies for reprogramming them, and the importance of consistency and patience. It's a lot to take in, but remember, every journey starts with a single step. By understanding and reprogramming your habitual triggers, you can take control of your habits and ultimately, your life.